everyone, and welcome back to Rising Sign Astrology. In today's video, we'll be discussing how astrology really works and how it might not be what you think it is. Everyone thinks astrology is about predictions and knowing when something good is going to happen or when something bad is coming so you can dodge it. And that sounds nice and while somewhat true in that it can be used for that, it's also missing the bigger point. Astrology is not fortune telling, right? It's not here to give you guarantees or help you avoid discomfort. And it's definitely not a tool for feeding your ego or finding, excuses for your behavior in your chart. And a lot of people use astrology like a spiritual cheat code or, a mirror that only reflects back what they want to see in themselves or in others. And that's not what this is, right? At its best, astrology is a navigation tool, right? It's here to help you read the energetic weather to understand the deeper patterns and timing at play in your life. And when you use it right, it's not about controlling outcomes, it's about clarity and growth. It won't prevent the storms, but it will, help you walk through them with your eyes open and make sure that you're prepared for them. So in this video, I'm breaking down how astrology actually works and why some people, even astrologers and especially YouTube astrologers, are using it in shallow ways at best, and in some ways at worst in misleading ways. Now, before I get in to the content, if you're enjoying this astrology content that I put out, this video, please feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. And, if you do find these insights helpful, a quick like or comment really helps support the channel. It really tells the algorithm that this content is worth sharing with other astrology lovers. So I do appreciate that. And as always, if you ever want to book a reading, the information to do so is in the description box below. All right, let's get into it. Okay, let's start here. Most people are using astrology totally wrong. They treat it like fortune telling, like a tool to predict whether something good or bad is going to happen, or worse, like a spiritual hall pass to explain away bad behavior, right? Well, I'm just a Scorpio, I can't help it, right? And nothing against Scorpios, I love Scorpios. But that's not astrology, right? That's narcissism wrapped in spirituality. And astrology isn't meant to give you guarantees or help you avoid pain. It can, help you avoid pain in some instances when you're consciously prepared and moving through it and you're aware that this is here for a season and not permanently, but it's not here to allow you to bypass. And it definitely isn't meant to excuse patterns that you or others are just unwilling to grow from, right? It's not here to tell your fate. And what it is here to do is give you context around your fate, right? To help you understand where you are in your specific story, right? Not to script it for you. So astrology is not a hack. It's a tool for navigation. And another thing that comes up a lot is, free will versus fate, right? Is everything fated? Do we have free will? And honestly, over the years, my opinion on this has shifted. And I'm at a point now where I honestly think it's both, right? Life to me, especially when you get to understand astrology, feels a lot like a choose your own adventure game. You might take 100 different paths, but some checkpoints are hardwired in. Like you're going to hit that, the haunted house on page 8, no matter what path you take to get there. And you're going to hit those turning points no matter the route you took. So whether it's karma from 10 lifetimes ago that's coming up to be paid, or something that you chose to come here to experience, certain things are just going to happen irregardless. And that's really what techniques like zodiacal releasing, or in the Vedic tradition, Mahadasha periods, reveal so clearly, right? That it's not all one or the other. There are seasons of acceleration and contraction and endings and new beginnings, and they really do show up in people's charts like clockwork when you're able to understand the different timing periods, right? Now, what you do with those seasons, that is up to you. That's your part to figure out. Because astrology doesn't tell you what will happen with absolute certainty. And people really need to understand that. What it does is it tells you the time that it's going to happen, right? It tells you when it will show up. It shows you the kind of terrain that you're entering into. And it's up to you whether you fight or resist or walk away or run from it or just choose to grow through it. We have little control over events in our lives often, but we can control is how we respond to them. So when we talk about fate and free will, it's not either or. It really is a collaboration between your soul and time itself. So yes, some events seem destined in our lives, but ultimately how you respond to them is up to you, and that determines whether or not you grow. And in some instances, determine whether or not you learn the lesson and will need to repeat that cycle more than once. And yeah, I think a lot of people think astrology is just simply about what's going to happen. I'm going to listen to my monthly forecast or get an astrology reading, and everything's going to be set in stone. But it doesn't work like that. It's not some magical forecast that tells you exactly when you're going to get the job or when you're going to meet the person of your dreams or lose money or hit the jackpot, right? And while it can do that to a certain extent, and sometimes with remarkable accuracy, that's not really what it's doing. And if that's all you're using astrology for, you're really missing the deeper point. I personally believe that astrology works because there's a conscious intelligence woven into reality. Whether you call it God, the universe, source, it doesn't really matter what name you use. What matters is the fact that there is an intelligence woven into it. And it speaks not in words, but in patterns. And it speaks in cycles. It speaks through time. And the planets don't control your life. They're not like puppeteers in the sky pulling strings. What they are is time markers. And they're showing you where you are in your story that your soul came here to live. So think of them almost like spiritual timestamps or reminders of where your attention is being called for this particular season. And your birth chart is your blueprint, right? And it's not just in a metaphorical or symbolic way. It's literally, I believe, an energetic encoding that's hardwired into your system from the moment you were born and entered this reality. So think of it like this, and no one's ever taught this to me. I haven't read this anywhere, but this is sort of how I've come to think about it, right? When you were born, the sky was arranged in a very specific way in terms of where planets were. And that moment in time, it imprinted itself onto your body, your nervous system, your emotional wiring, your overall energetic frequency. And you have this unique astrological fingerprint that is completely you. And it's not this abstract idea. It really is imprinted in your body. So your instincts, your emotional reactions, your coping patterns, they're not random, right? They're tied to how energy moved through the sky the moment you took your first breath. And the moment that your soul synced up with time and this physical reality. And each planet in your chart it's sort of like a locked-in signal tower, right? And it's broadcasting this particular frequency through you. And as the transiting planets move through the sky, right, year over year, decade over decade, they ping those natal placements. And that's why certain periods of life can feel so charged and so personal. It's because the transits aren't just happening out there. They're activating something that's been living inside of you your entire life. So you could think of your chart as kind of this resonance map, this ping And the planets keep moving, but they're always sort of checking in with what was imprinted on you from your birth time, your birth chart, right? And at different moments, it can reawaken old themes or challenge growth, or just highlight the exact parts of you that are now ready to evolve. So it's like your natal placements themselves are a beacon. And when a planet in motion lines up with that beacon, whether it's a conjunction, a square, an opposition, it activates a specific piece of not only your story, but you. And it's not random, it's not arbitrary, in my opinion, right? It's rhythmic and it seems intelligent. And when you look at the different cycles, whether it's a Saturn return or a Jupiter cycle, every 12 years, or eclipses that are striking like the nodal points, like they really do feel like divine checkpoints, but also divine check-ins of like, okay, are you walking your path in this particular area? So when you feel like, life is just out of control, like during like a Pluto transit or another difficult period of time, or you're experiencing like a Saturn square or something of that sort, what's happening is these planets are activating some precise part of you that's internally coded, where you've agreed to be tested, right? Where you've signed up to evolve. So the birth chart is not just this personality test the way, Western culture has adopted it over the past number of years or 50 years. It really is, in many ways, your actual internal operating system. And it shows everything from your emotional wiring to your blind spots to your gifts to your opportunities to learn or improve, and everything about you. So when I look at the transits, like if somebody says, okay, Saturn's going to hit your second house, or you're having Pluto move into your 10th, it's not necessarily looking at them as good or bad. What they are is just activations. And what they're signaling is that something in your chart is being stirred up on purpose, whether it's a lesson or a test or maybe a long overdue breakthrough. It's just about karma coming to be fulfilled. And here's the thing about karma that I don't think people fully grasp or think through, is that karma isn't good or bad. It's a misconception where people are like, well, that's karma. No, karma just is. It's not punishment. It's not reward. It's simply unfinished business. It's a reckoning. Energy that was set into motion is now coming back to complete its arc. So you can think of karma more like cause and effect, right? But stretched across time, even lifetimes. And every action, every choice, every intention carries weight. Some of it resolves quickly. Some of it waits until you're ready, until the conditions are right, until it says, okay, now's the time that we have to pay that back. And that is also why certain chapters feel fated. It's why you meet someone and it changes everything. Or why certain events just feel like they're eerily timed. Or a moment feels impossible to escape, right? It's not always because you did something wrong. It's because some part of your soul set it into motion. And now it's time to meet that. And that is where astrology comes in. Because when you're in the middle of a heavy Saturn transit or a Ketu Mahadasha or like Pluto sitting on your sun, it can feel really harsh, but it's not random. It's karma being processed. The soul saying, this story, this thing, this energy needs closure or evolution. And you don't need to label it good or bad, even though you can feel like you're experiencing in the 3D world in one of those two very polarized ways. But the real question, once you get past that, is what are you going to do with it? Because that's where evolution comes in. So when you hear you're going to have Saturn coming into your second house, right? that doesn't have to be about doom and scarcity. We need to condition ourselves to look at it more deeply, right? Because that's an example where Saturn's asking, are your finances structured, or are you valuing yourself, or are you relying too much on external validation? This is just one example, but it's important because when you're going through something like that and during that time, that part of your life is what's under review. And here's where astrology becomes really useful, because if you know that Saturn transit to your second house is coming in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, you can prepare, right? You can start saving in advance. You can tighten your expenses. You could build something more solid in advance so that when the test actually comes, you're ready. You're not rattled. And that is how astrology helps. It doesn't tell you exactly what's going to happen, but it tells you the kind of moment you're entering, right? It tells you the part of your story that's ready to evolve and where change is going to come. And it helps because when we think about it through that lens of being prepared, it puts us in a place where we're not living in chaos. We're living in a system of sacred timing that we're consciously aware of. So every moon cycle, every retrograde, every nodal shift, it's all part of this clock, right? This feedback loop. And while some people say it's divine order, or some people say it's energy, or even some people say we're living in a simulation, it doesn't really matter, right? Because I think they're all speaking sort of the same truth, just using different metaphors for it. Because what's the real difference between a simulation like we see in the Matrix and, the concept of Maya and life being an illusion in spiritual traditions, right? Both point to the idea that what we perceive as reality is not the full picture, that there's a veil, there's a construct and a design. And I think that everyone that follows astrology at some point begins to realize that there is something deeper and more intelligent that's sitting beneath the surface of what we all perceive as real around us. So, in the simulation metaphor, life is like software, right? You were born into a program with rules and patterns and loops. And your birth chart is like that unique configuration. It's your code. And the transits would be system updates, right? Timed events that activate different lines within your internal script. Now, in the Maya concept, life is an illusion and your soul chooses to enter, not as a trap, but as a learning experience. And you're not here to escape the illusion. You're here to wake up inside of it, to remember who you are while you're still playing the game. So, whatever you call it, whether it's a code or an illusion or some form of divine order, it all comes back to the very same idea that this life is not random, it's very much structured. And that your soul chooses to be here at this time with this chart in this body for a reason. And astrology is the language of that system, right? It's sort of the instruction manual for your specific avatar to tell you the timing of your life. And the more that you learn to understand that and read that, the more conscious you become of the illusion around you. And the more power you have to move through it with not only grace, but actual intention, right? You don't escape it. You learn to play it better. And you don't fight the Maya. You evolve and learn to see through it so you can act with clarity in the physical world while still knowing it's all an illusion, that it's all a dream. But either way, astrology helps you see those patterns and read the signs, and it explains why it all feels so personal. And, people often, have a stigma associated with astrology, but it's really not like woo. It's one of the most practical and grounded tools we have for living with awareness. And your chart is a roadmap. When I have my one-on-one consultations, I remind everybody of that. Your chart is not fixed. This is not fatalistic. But your chart is deeply revealing in that it shows the karmic lessons that you're here to work through. And it shows the strengths that you're meant to develop. And the transits are able to unlock and show the timing of your growth. And like I said, it's about being prepared. If you're going on a road trip and you know that you're going to hit a really icy or foggy stretch of road for the next 10 miles, wouldn't you drive a little differently? Of course you would. You'd slow down, or you check your tires, or maybe before the trip you'd get your brakes looked at. And that is what astrology gives you. You're not waiting for chaos to strike. You're working with the rhythm instead of against it. So I think that astrology at its deepest core is just observing the energy and the patterns. And like I said, it doesn't remove the storm, but it helps you pack the right gear for it. So yeah, that's my perspective. Astrology, to recap, is not about dodging life. It's not about hacking it. It's about understanding it. And the more you use it to grow self-awareness instead of chasing predictions, the more powerful it's going to become within your life. And the more impact you're going to be able to make by using it. And a lot of it is just being prepared. So if this shifted how you see astrology, or maybe just reinforced how you were already using it or thinking about it in your life, please drop a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. I'm really interested in hearing everyone's viewpoint. As always, thank you for watching and listening. And don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what's next. And again, if you ever want to book a personal reading, whether for career or romance or just general life stuff, all of the information is in the description box below. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one.